And welcome everybody to the Huddle here on KGUN9 streaming platforms where we talk sports every Tuesday at 3 o'clock our time. I'm Jason Barr, joined by Pat Parris. Pat, how are you today?
Doing pretty well. A little rainy at times outside. Kind of a nice change of pace, Jason.
Might be a little rainy, but we're inside. You know, I was outside last week. If you didn't see last week's show, we were actually on our way to San Antonio for the Sweet 16, and literally on our way in a news vehicle. And I stepped outside the car in a place called Sierra Blanca, Texas, and it was really cold and windy. And it was mind over matter for 15 minutes, and we got it done. So
yeah, it's a memory. It's a memory for us, Jason. We'll never forget West Texas,
Sierra Blanca. We're in the where we only get one bar on the phone. So we're in the comfortable KGUN9 studios, and a lot to talk about and unpack today. We've got a busy Tuesday, so some of the stuff we're going to talk about. Tommy Lloyd, Coach of the Year Award, wins the National Association of Basketball Coaches Award. We're going to talk about Sean Miller going to Xavier, the ex-Arizona coach, back with the Musketeers. Some new NFL overtime rules, but different from the postseason and the regular season. We'll get to that. And Pat did a story on the Sugar Skulls quarterback, Daquan Deal. All right, so Pat, let's start with Arizona basketball. It's been, what's today, Tuesday? It's been 5 days. The loss still stings, for sure. It was nice to see Tommy Lloyd win that award today. Certainly, there were a lot of other coaches that you could make a case that should have gotten it. In fact, the Houston coach, Kelvin Sampson, took a team from the Final Four, lost all 5 starters, got hurt this year, went to the Elite Eight. I would put him in that category. But certainly great, for the University of Arizona. Here's a coach who takes over a team. They're not unranked to begin the year, and they're 33-4 and tie the school record for the most amount of wins.
Yeah, and I think really what it comes down to as far as why he won Coach of the Year is he took a team that was talented, but not overly talented, just a team that we thought, you and I sat on this very platform at the start of the basketball season and said, maybe 20, 21 wins, sneak into the NCAA tournament. That's the type of talent we thought they had. But he, to a man, Jason, Tommy Lloyd, was able with his staff to get every player to improve in some cases dramatically, in other cases just markedly. You could tell there was a difference in their play, that they all got better almost instantly at the start of the season, and then they continued to progress. It's unfortunate that it came up short. You always feel like a team that's a 1 seed should at least make the Elite Eight, if not the Final Four. But it's hard, Jason. Look at the Final Four right now, and these are some teams with a lot of pedigree. You'd like to think that Arizona is, it will get back there at some point, or at least is in that next conversation as far as basketball pedigree. But it just wasn't meant to be. Not a lot of experience on this team in postseason play, obviously, and I think that's really what kind of caught up to them.
And one player who needs to make improvement going into next year is Luis Tubelis. I'd love to know what happened and why he was so unproductive at the NCAA tournament, those second and third games. 0 for 8 against Houston, only played 16 minutes against TCU. People were speculating, was he not disclosing an injury? Was there something going on mentally? But that really hurt the team for a player who was so productive during the year and all of a sudden being so unproductive during the season. So you hope he comes back and is a better player and a more consistent player next year.
Yeah, I would echo that. I would also say that, what you saw with Arizona in that 33% shooting, you can't win an NCAA tournament game shooting 33%. But you saw the same thing happen to the University of Houston in the next game.
In the Elite Eight. Yep.
You're right. And so you're going to run into one of those matchups where you don't match up very well. For Arizona, it was Houston, but you've got to shoot the ball well in order to overcome some of those matchups. They didn't. Houston ran into, obviously, one of those premier programs in Villanova. You've got to find a way. You've got to shoot the ball better, and they didn't. And so sometimes it's a matchup that keeps you from being you, but you have to find a way, and it wasn't meant to be.
All right, so Arizona's former coach, Sean Miller, takes a job with Xavier, the team he coached before for several years. I think he was with Xavier for 8 years, maybe 4 or 5 as head coach. And he goes back there. Not exactly going back to the same job, because Xavier right now is in the Big East. They were in the Atlantic 10. This seems like a really a good fit for him. It seems like this is a team that's going to embody him, which is like gritty and tough and physical. And you and I listened to the entire news conference actually on the way back from San Antonio, and he didn't mention Arizona that much. He mentioned a little bit it was kind of like, going around the edges here. Second chances was brought up, but it was almost meant like a second stint at Xavier and not something he did wrong. He again wouldn't talk about the investigation, the whole line about, hey, out of respect for the process, I'm not going to talk about it. He's allowed to talk about it. And then, of course, when, as you said, when it does come out, he's going to say, well, that's in the past now. So we're never really going to find out from here. I don't think Xavier really cares. Xavier's looking at how many games he won at Arizona, how many games he won at Xavier, the fact that they haven't been to the tournament in a few years and they want to be back there. And I think that's all they're concerned with. And they're not in a, he didn't do anything over there. So, he's very confident in the news conference, and also kind of maybe even, he's talking about recruiting, and he mentioned how Christian Coloco and Ben Mathward weren't that highly recruited, but he was able to find them, and he expects to do the same thing as Xavier.
There's a comment here. Why do you think he didn't really mention Arizona or the investigation? You touched on it, Jason, but to me, it's right out of the crisis management handbook for sports athletes, coaches, and management. And that is, you say that out of respect for the process, the investigative process, we're not going to say anything. And then when people keep questioning you, say, well, I refer back to my original statement. And then when they ask you again later on, when the process is kind of starting to wrap up, you say, well, I still can't talk about it. I have to have respect for the process. I'm not allowed to talk about it at this point, which is not true. And then once it comes out, and then they always follow it up. And Sean Miller did that the other day. He said, but when it's over, I'll have plenty to say about it, and I'll be able to talk more about it then. But as well as I do, Jason, when it comes to that point, they'll slap the whatever suspension he'll get, because that'll follow him to Xavier, and then he'll say, well, that's in the past, we're moving forward.
That's right.
And that'll be it. And that'll be it. And then if somebody keeps bringing it up, say, well, I stand by my previous statement. That's it. That's exactly what they do. So, that's where it stands with Sean Miller. I think you're right. It's a second chance for him. It's a good fit. You figure, where would he go? I thought if he didn't go to Xavier, which I actually didn't think about. So it's not like I said, oh, he's going to go to Xavier. I did not. But it makes sense that Xavier thinks of him as a second chance spot. I also thought there was an outside chance maybe if Pitt decided to change coaches, because that's his alma mater, and he's still very much loved in his hometown. He grew up in the Pittsburgh area. But I think what was telling was his comments, Jason. He talked about, almost every one of the players at Arizona was his recruits, and he was happy to see them and all that. And that's fine. He can take some credit if he'd like. But I thought it was telling that when he talked about recruiting, he talked about that he fell into, and this is my words, not his, into kind of a trap of going after the 5-star, the big name recruits. And there were a lot of one and dones at Arizona. And you can do that at Arizona because, of course, you're a big name program. At Xavier, he talked about going back to my kind of guy, or our kind of guys, the guys that
took that from Rich Rodriguez.
Yes, exactly. But it's that plan of, okay, we're not going to get the 5-stars. We probably won't get a lot of 4-stars. Maybe we can get some 3-stars that we think are going to round into those guys that are going to make a difference. And being in the Big East now, they have to make a difference, but they don't have to quite make the difference that you'd have to make at one of the top programs in one of the top conferences.
No, he deserves credit for being a good evaluator of talent, but at no time during that news conference was level 1 allegation even mentioned. And so you'll see him get suspended probably if that's what happens. Who knows?
I would guess though.
And that would be the end of it. So Sean Miller goes back to Xavier. He turned down a standing offer from South Carolina. You have to even wonder, when he talked about going back to Xavier in the middle of the season to catch a game, who knows, maybe it was a hint, I'm available if you guys are changing coaches, you wonder about that. So
I
Sean Miller goes back to Xavier, and
well, and look, Jason, that's a good quality program. That actually is going to be, imagine, would you rather recruit at Xavier or South Carolina?
No, go to South Carolina, you're going to get beat up by Kentucky and a whole bunch of other
exactly,
SEC.
and you're never
going to know the lay of the land.
Right.
His wife may not like that area.
You hit that on the head. And you know what? She's from Ohio. I think they're very happy in Ohio. And I don't think they have disparaging things to say about Tucson, but Tucson, you're under a microscope like nowhere else if you're the head basketball coach. At Xavier, you're not even the first team everybody thinks about there. Cincinnati is. And then you've got Ohio State. And, your you're not necessarily getting stopped everywhere you go when you're the head basketball coach at Xavier. Let's put it that way.
All right, so NFL overtime rules get changed today, but only in the postseason. So now what happens, and this has to do with, of course, the Bills-Chiefs game. Now if a team scores and gets a touchdown in the postseason in overtime, they're the first team with the possession, they score and they get a touchdown. In the past, the game was over, that team wins. Now the other team is guaranteed a possession in overtime. I think that everybody pretty much agrees with that. That's not where the discussion almost is. The discussion almost is, why aren't they also doing that in the regular season? They're only changing it in the postseason. If you're going to change it in the postseason, you should just change it in the regular season. And so, we're left to conjecture that maybe, well, they don't want the game back tied again, and they don't want so many ties in the regular season. Well, if that's the case, then why do they shorten overtime from 15 minutes to 10 minutes? They make the change only in the postseason. I wouldn't be surprised 5-10 years down the road, if not sooner, you see it be the same for the regular season and the postseason.
Yeah, my first reaction is, what the heck took you so long? This should have been done decades ago. They were the last level of any professional football that didn't have an overtime where every team gets to touch, both teams get to touch the ball at least. So I'm glad they finally came to their senses about that. But I'm like you, just change it for regular season as well. The ties, while it might be troublesome because now you have to print an extra line in the box score, a tie is still not a loss. So, so what if you play 15 minutes or 10 minutes and both teams score touchdowns and it's still tied? Oh, well. But I have a feeling, Jason, in regulation or in regular season games, if you go to overtime, let's say the first team scores a touchdown, you come back and score a touchdown, I'm pretty sure you're going for two. Why wouldn't you go for two in that situation? Or at least you'd contemplate going for two so you can win the game or lose the game. Especially if there's like a minute left on the clock or time's running out, you'd probably think about it. But regardless of all that, I really think that it should be just like you. I think it should be in the regular season as well, not just postseason.
I liked ties in hockey. I think maybe because I grew up with ties in hockey. I was always used to 3 lines: wins, losses, and ties. Now it's like 5 or 6 lines. It's wins and losses and overtime losses and shootout losses. Listen, just give me ties. I'll take a tie.
And then in hockey, you have, you basically get quality wins. You get a quality win for a regulation. I mean, it's like you get bonus for a regular win, but if you win it in a shootout, it's not counted as like you won it in regulation. It's just the way it
and sometimes the final week of the regular season in the NFL is like a postseason game,
It's true.
So,
it's true.
All right. So, speaking of football, we got the Tucson Sugar Skulls back, and you did a story on their quarterback, DeQuan Neal. I'll let you
bring that MVP level quarterback play.
In just one game as a Tucson Sugar Skull, DeQuan Neal has played like an MVP. Neal throwing 4 touchdown passes and running in another in the Sugar Skulls season opening win at Las Vegas. Neal has been reunited with Sugar Skulls head coach Dixie Wooten. The two teamed up in Iowa to win the Indoor Football League championship in 2019.
Quarterback is the face of the team, so as long as you got a good quarterback and a good head coach, that's a dynamic duo.
Neal brings plenty of experience to a position where the Sugar Skulls struggled last season.
Everything happens so fast, so it's like you got to kind of know what you're doing before the play even starts. So if you don't, then the speed is just going to take over.
He was able to slow things down in 2019, not only winning the United Bowl with the Barnstormers, but also IFL MVP. He's the first rookie to ever win the award. The North Carolina native gives a lot of credit to Dixie Wooten. It's why he jumped at the chance to reunite with the head coach in Tucson.
He like a big brother to me. He brought me in and he definitely developed my skills as a quarterback. So now
all right, so we pretty much got the gist of that. And basically, Pat, the Sugar Skulls, the quarterback who was going to be the quarterback last year, who was highly regarded, at the last minute couldn't come. And that leaves the team in such a pickle. Because it's not like there's another great quarterback sitting around. The quarterbacks are already taken for the season. And that really put the Sugar Skulls in a hole last year. Well, this year, it's not that quarterback from before or the guy who came in. This is as you pointed out, this is the MVP from a couple of years ago. And you really saw that in the win on Sunday.
Yeah, it definitely elevated the play of quarterback. There's really literally 2 or 3 quarterbacks in this indoor football league that can make the difference in whether you're a legitimate contender for a championship or you're just an also-ran. And last year, because of the situation, they were Demery Croft, and you've got guys that are learning how to play quarterback on the fly. This is not the league to learn how to play indoor football as a rookie and expect to make the playoffs and even have a chance to win the championship. So really, it gets down to now with a guy like DeQuan Neal, you suddenly are in the same talk and discussions as the Arizona Rattlers as perhaps two of the top 3 or 4 teams that are going to have a chance to win it. And I know I sound like I'm all in and I'm just buying what they're selling, but I'm telling you, having covered this indoor game for a long time, you get a guy like DeQuan Neal, it makes the difference, and it's the eye test first and foremost, but then it's the wins and losses. And Jason, they got to win on Sunday at Vegas, a team that already played a game when the Sugar Skulls hadn't played a game yet. And that's a game they would have lost last year. There's just no question they would have lost that game last year. So now you're already in the plus column because you've got a road win.
No, that was definitely a good win to start the season. And yeah, when you have a team that's so new, in the first game, you never know how things are going to look. But for sure, that was a good win. And Corey Murphy did a good job at the end of last year. But DeQuan Neal looks like a polished indoor football league quarterback, and he's going to be a great addition to them. Good to see Mike Jones, the running back, back. A couple of guys aren't back from last year. Ryan Ballantyne's not, and a couple of other guys. But
we didn't talk about it. We didn't talk about it, but I don't know if you saw, but Antonio Rosales was back at left.
Very interesting. I saw that.
And I talked to Dixie
about second chances.
Yeah, I talked to Dixie, and he said, look, I know that he knows that he really messed up. If you don't remember, fairly early last season, right? He got into a shoving match and he took a swing at a player and he got ejected from the game and they got kicked off the Sugar Skulls, and rightly so. He is but
he's a Tucson native, and he's a good
guy,
and
he's a good guy.
Way.
And you know what?
He is. See him back on the roster.
I was too, and Dixie just said, "Look, we talked to him, and we think that he knows his mistakes, and he felt really horrible for it. And this is a guy who's so mild mannered, but he's one of those guys that when you get him on the football field, he just clicks into that mode, and he's a great offensive lineman. And so." I think they gave him another chance, and we'll see if he can make good on that chance. So far, so good, although I think he got hurt in that game. We'll have to check on that. They do play Friday, Jason, in Texas against the Frisco Fighters, and then the following Saturday, so April 9th, that's the home opener. They'll be taking on the San Diego Strike Force, back in the league after taking a year off because of COVID. San Diego's back. Last night, the Rattlers just destroyed San Diego, so we'll see. Should be a good opener on April 9th. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, San Diego struggled a lot. Was that last year or was that back in 19?
It was two. Yeah, it was two. Yeah, the first year that the Sugar Skulls were in the league.
So 19, yeah.
2019,
yeah. No season. What happened to the franchise in Spokane?
I'm not sure why they. I think that originally there was talk that they were having problems with the building and getting the lease. So maybe that's what ended up happening, which is too bad. But there are 14 teams. This is the biggest it's been. With this Vegas franchise, they got big money up there. Watching that game on Sunday, it looked like they had a lot of advertising. They had some fans, and I think that's maybe a great thing for the indoor league to have a franchise like Vegas to go along with Phoenix and Tucson.
Okay, Miner 81 says, Pat, thanks for bringing up Dave Silver in your coverage of the 25th Hoops Championship. I covered the first 2 games in Memphis for K-Gun with John Parris. Do you know who Miner 81 is?
I don't. I wish I did, but
Miner 81. Tell us who you are.
Yeah, if you can, tell us who you are. I'll tell you that
I got a funny story, by the way. Go ahead, Pat.
I just want to say that I had great response to that story. If you haven't checked it out, it's on the KGUN9.com. We're almost at the 25th anniversary. It'll be Thursday. It'll be the 25th anniversary of the Lute Olson National Championship in 1997. And Dave Silver even reached out and said he had forgotten about so much of that stuff and a lot of the video. That it's rare. It would never happen now, Jason. But for Dave Silver to be at the team hotel the day of the national championship game, doing an interview in the lobby with Lute Olson so that they had something for their early shows before the game, it would never happen now. I had to laugh, but Dave did it, and Lute was kind enough to do it, and it was great stuff to look back at that.
So Joe Pirates, were you the weekend sports anchor then? If you or a sports reporter at that time? And while you get back to us, I'll tell my funny story. And yeah, obviously Pat's very restricted today. It's not like the old days.
No.
But we were getting ready to do the live shot before the game, and an Arizona fan, I don't know if you remember this, comes up and he goes to me, Dave Silver.
Yeah.
And he looks again and he says, oh wait, Dave Silver's son. As obviously we're part of the same tribe, as we like to say, but I am
He
a
said
little
yep.
younger than he is. But
He
I've
said
gotten
yes.
mistaken for Dave Silver a few times even in the last few years. I mean, we're going back now a decade.
Right.
Because
Right.
actually, Pat, you know what? What day is the 5th? I think I started on April 5th, 2012. So next week, I guess that would be next Tuesday, would be my 10-year anniversary.
Tuesday. Yeah, a week from today.
So
We'll have to
Dave's been
celebrate
gone.
on the Huddle. We'll celebrate on the Huddle next Tuesday.
Dave's been gone for more than 10 years, but still I'll get misrecognized for him.
30 plus years as a sports
Yeah.
director at K-Gun, and just like with Guy Atchley, 34 years at K-Gun, and yeah, it's a long tenure for sure. And Dave,
Yeah, I did interview.
Dave's a terrific guy.
Yeah, I did interview Dave when Lute passed. I did something similar to you, and we did talk to him about that. So yeah, no, definitely a different era for sure. You need a weekend sports guy. We do. We do. What have you been up to, Joe Pirates? Well, I'm the only one full-time in sports, but I don't think they're looking at a sports person.
No, I don't think we are. We have Ryan Fish and me and you
Pat
and
Ryan do it on the days
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
in. So right now they're not going with that.
it was great to hear from Minor 81, Joe Pirates.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Pat. Let's make sure we don't have any other comments here. Any final?
Well, we didn't even talk about Arizona football, but I think we'll be able to do that next Tuesday because we'll be less than a week away from their spring game. But there's some excitement. I mean, you know as well as I do, there's a buzz, and now that we transition from that basketball mode, we get a little spring football mode before we really kind of focus on Arizona baseball and softball. So we'll talk about that next week, but I think it'll be fun. I think that the spring game, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, T-Mac impressed. I was only there for the first practice because we've been on the road with basketball, but at the first practice, T-Mac, Tedero, and McMillan really impressed, and they've got some exciting players. And Jed Fish has done a very good job in recruiting, certainly in this first year. So terrific. All right. Well, that'll be for next Tuesday. Maybe we'll have a cake or something for me.
Yes, or at least a cupcake.
Cupcake.
Yeah, we'll do
that's
that.
all I'm worth to you, Pat. Just a cupcake.
Well, times are tough, Jason. Times are tough.
Inflation.
Would have been a cake. Now it's
all
you
can get is a cupcake for the price of a cake last year.
That's right.
All right. Pat, thanks so much. We're going to get ready for the 5 and 6 o'clock news here. For Pat Parris, I'm Jason Barr. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching and listening here on the Huddle here on KGUN 9 streaming platforms. We'll see you right back here next week at this time.